Hey there! Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive, both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 205 is titled, The Functional Musician Answers Your Health and Wellness Questions. Hey, Flute 360er. Are you a flutist who experiences tension, tightness, or occasional pain while you play? Well, research suggests that anywhere from 62 to 93% of musicians will fit into this category during their playing career. Or maybe you are a flutist that doesn't want to join this looming statistic and would rather play with less tension and more freedom. Either way, Austin Pantsner, the founder and CEO of The Functional Musician, is running an 8-week online injury prevention course that begins on June 5th. Over 8 weeks, Austin will guide you through his injury prevention model to help you release tension, tightness, and pain. In addition, you will participate in daily movement routines, injury prevention lessons, and workshops, and develop a toolbox of techniques to manage and prevent distracting physical symptoms so you can live with less tension and more freedom on and away from your instrument. Enrollment is open until June 1st. Please go to thefunctionalmusician.com to sign up. The link is in the show notes below. Thanks! Can we switch it up a bit and look at the dialogue that has been occurring between you, me, and some 360 listeners? Because,
yeah, sure. Let's do it.
As you know, in these Facebook posts and groups, I'm very thankful that my listeners are very honest and open and sharing something that is painful. And, sometimes people think, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths, but sometimes I think talking about this freely is almost seen as taboo,
Mm-hmm.
And the fact
100%.
that, right. And so I think, the fact that some of these 360 listeners have reached out and said, hey, I'm going through XYZ, hats off to them, because that's not always so easy. So one Flute 360 listener states, I had nerve damage at my left elbow, and it was made worse with pregnancy. While it never fully recovered, and some of it is permanent, I found exercising and routine recovery, aka stretching, cork balls, massage guns to help. And I really got into body mapping to try to minimize, and that has helped a ton. I also go to a chiropractor regularly. I would like to know if there's anything else I can do that I'm missing.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like you're off to a good start. Number one, I'm sorry to hear about your nerve damage, especially with it being flared up during your pregnancy. I'm sure that was not an easy time. As a male, I will never know what that is like, but my hat is off to you. And thanks for sharing your experience and asking your question. So massage balls, SMR, massage guns, corks, those are fantastic for expanding really compressed areas, such as tight muscles and fascia. So something that I want you to think about, go back to episode 203. Something that I talk about is the relationship of the pelvis and the shoulders. And whatever is happening in the pelvis is going to eventually make its way to the shoulders. And the thing about the shoulders is that it's connected to the rib cage. It's connected to your biceps and triceps, which connects to your elbow all the way to your wrist. And if there's any type of adaptations that are happening from your pelvis to your shoulders all the way to your wrist, that can alter different positions. So for example, a lot of people experience carpal tunnel or cubital tunnel when the arm twists in certain ways and adapts in certain ways. It will become really compressed in one area, for example, maybe the triceps, and really relaxed in another area, such as the biceps. So this will alter the channel, the tunnel, that various nerves go down, thus compressing them.
Hmm.
So theoretically, if we want to reduce tension or give yourself more space for those nerves to move, we have to expand some really tight areas in your forearm, in your bicep or your tricep. But we also want to check the relationship of your shoulders. This is something you can do in the mirror. You can check in the mirror, just kind of look at your posture, see how your hips and your shoulders line up. Do you have a little tilt in your lower back?
Mhm.
Maybe you have a forward tilt, or maybe it's pretty symmetrical. Looking at your shoulders, are your shoulders down and back, or are they super forward and down? A good way to check this is your shoulder matching up with the line of your chest.
Okay.
And how's your head in orientation to your spine? Is it coming forward? Is it more neutral? Is it coming forward a little bit, or is it more back? And depending on the position, that is going to affect how much movement capacity you have in your arm. For example, if we were to just kind of hunch over, everybody can't see me. Don't do this in the car if you're driving and listening. Please, 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 please. But if we were to just kind of like hunch over, just like completely let everything fall, and you try to reach your arm up above your head, you can only go so far. Your scapula is no longer going to be able to move and rotate. But if we were to kind of align our hips, our rib cage over our pelvis, and our head over our shoulders and lift our arm up, we have so much more movement at our disposal. And the thing is, motion never happens in isolation. The wrist, the elbow, the shoulder, the rib cage, the scapula, and the lower back all move together. So I would check that movement. And really what I'm talking about too, in terms of the expansion and compression, this comes from Bill Hartman. He's a physical therapist in Indianapolis, and he has taken this postural restoration model, which there's the Postural Restoration Institute. You can go on their website, you can find a provider, or you can reach out to me because I'm working in that fashion as well. But you can look into that, and this is the type of methodology on how they view the human body as it moves. So it sounds like to me, in summary, I know I kind of went a little deep, but it sounds like we have some really compressed areas, either in your bicep, your tricep, or your forearms, or even your scapula in your upper back region, or maybe even your lower back region, that's causing some tension and some tightness to compress on that nerve. If we think about it almost like a really wet towel, and you wrap it up and you wind it up and you wind it up and you don't snap it, but you recognize, oh my gosh, it's very twisted, it's very tight. It's like that concept. And what you want to do is slowly untangle the side so you can buy yourself some more movement. Unfortunately, I can't really talk about how to do that right now because it's a little complicated, but that's the basic premise. And what's the last thing I'll say, it's like the massage guns and the corks and even massage therapy would help alleviate that tension in your arms. But if the reason the tension is happening isn't addressed, you're going to have to keep coming back to SMR, self-myofascial release, and the massage guns to deal with the symptoms that are happening that could be stemming from other places in your body, such as your rib cage or your lower back, just as an example.
That is amazing. I mean, like we've been saying this for 3 episodes now, so not to sound redundant, but you're right. Like hearing that example and how you broke it down, it really is interconnected. So again, if I can say it right, because I think I said it right the first time, and I was like really proud of myself because I kind of surprised myself. But the pain isn't always like where you are experiencing pain isn't necessarily the source. Did I say that right?
Exactly.
So what I'm hearing as you break it down, she's talking, oh, my left elbow. But you brought it where my brain was, I was having to kind of like lightly touch these different parts of my body as you were describing it, because you were talking about shoulder, biceps. I mean, you were going everywhere. I mean, of course, like she's talking about the elbow, but you were mentioning all these other parts of the body. And it was like, it is all interconnected. Holy moly.
Yeah, for sure. And, this is just one perspective, but it is an area that I encourage you to explore, just because if that's not something that you have explored, it could be the missing puzzle to, your giant puzzle, you're finished it, you're on 2,099 pieces and you're like, oh no, don't tell me I'm missing that puzzle piece. And now you got to search for it. But I think that could guide you down a path that could be really helpful. Hopefully.
I love it. No, that was amazing. The second Flute 360 listener states, I have tendonitis that flares up with weather changes. It's not as bad as it used to be, but I would love more tips on how to make it better.
Yeah. Okay. So That's a pretty common thing. Oftentimes we can get this, our body can have an inflammatory response in our joints or our circulatory system or our nervous system when the weather changes. For a variety of reasons, we have the barometric pressure, the humidity, the temperature, rain, or some combination of allergies. There's so many different factors coming into play. If it's allergies, you could definitely find some allergy medication, or you could go to your local farmer, get some local honey that could help build up a little bit of tolerance. That's something that I like to do, especially when I go down to Florida or back to the Midwest, because I have a goldenrod allergy and it is brutal. But the honey thing seems to do the trick. But outside of that, what you could do is, again, going back to a daily movement routine to help you manage and prevent these symptoms from occurring. Something that allows you to incorporate the breath, something that allows you to take note of your posture, of your alignment of your shoulders and hips, what we just, talked about with the nerve damage question. And also some type of self-myofascial release practice. I have a couple of those videos on Instagram where you take your thumb and you add some rotation along with some deep breathing. You could use a cork, you could use a massage gun to help relieve some pain and improve that area in terms of movement, as well as hydrate. And just learning a little bit more about what's actually going on that's causing the tendonitis. Is it that our muscles are put in a constant state of stress that we're maybe not realizing it, and that weather is kind of putting it over the edge? Is it that, we had tendonitis in the past, and honestly, we haven't really taken the time to properly load and strengthen the area that the tendonitis is in? Or maybe it's something that's completely out of your control and that's completely left base, and it's something that you're going to have to learn how to manage when this pops up. But if you perform SMR with the right approach, if you incorporate mindful movement, if you are aware of how posture and breathing influence each other, and you're aware what your personal compensation habits are, because everybody's going to have their own compensation strategy based on their ISA. I don't want to go into this, but basically your rib cage structure, rib cage structure you're born with, that's going to dictate how your body adapts in terms of time and space and gravity. All of these are different factors that you can start to explore. And, maybe one's really helpful, maybe one's not, but they are, again, all interconnected. And I'm sorry, I can't give you a straightforward answer, but I think that is something that would ultimately help improve that system. It maybe even get you to a point where maybe when that weather changes, the tendonitis flare-up doesn't happen anymore, which I think would be the ultimate goal. And I think that's completely in your capacity if you put your body in the right environment and you just learn what you need to do to improve that system, prevent that tendonitis from happening, as well as bring your tendonitis back if it does happen to flare up again.
And now SMR, just for a quick review, SMR is an abbreviation for what?
Yes, sorry. SMR is self-myofascial release. It involves finding a tender, tight, or beef jerky-like muscle on your body. It could be very achy or tender, or it could not have any feeling at all. It could just feel like a very tight beef jerky-like band. And then what you're going to do is you're going to maintain pressure for 60 to 90 seconds. Maintaining that pressure at like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. You don't want it to be painful, but there's a difference between tenderness and pain. If it's very sharp, it's a cue, that's pain. If it's like more like, wow, that's really tender, that's okay. And we want to deep breathe into that. Our body or our brain has the tendency to go into a fight or flight mode when pain happens. And that's a sympathetic response. We actually want to teach our brain, hey, let's relax. Let's connect to our parasympathetic nervous system. We do this by diaphragmatic breathing, very slow in through the nose, out through the mouth, like we're fogging up a mirror. Or in some cases, depending on your ribcage style, it may be more forceful, like I'm blowing up a balloon. But again, that's going to be dictated on your personal archetype structure. Yeah. So it's like, there's a bunch of different things that you can do. And I completely just zoned out.
No, I was with you.
Yeah.
No, so with the SMR, like I do SMR with a lacrosse ball. Now that's better than, well, I don't know if better is the right word, and you can correct me, than a tennis ball. Because I used to do. It
depends.
Okay. All right.
So like when we think about SMR, it doesn't have to be done with a specific tool. There are so many SMR tools out there. But think about it at this. The general rule is it needs to feel a little uncomfortable. We want to deep breathe. 60 and 90 seconds to tell our brain, hey, this is a safe area. Hey, let's relax. Hey, let's improve the blood circulation to this area. And that's going to happen from the 60 to 90 seconds pretty naturally. But, let's say you go on a lacrosse ball. Oh my gosh, this is like 10 out of 10 pain. I can't even take a breath. I just can't do it. So probably a little too painful, probably a little too tender, a little painful. So we want to dial it back. So we go to an SMR tool that's maybe not as hard and as pointed, such as a tennis ball. Oh, the tennis ball is like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. That's not enough to really make too much of a change. I'm really comfortable here. It doesn't really feel like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the in-between between a tennis ball and a lacrosse ball.
Okay.
Something like a softball, maybe like a soft, not a rubber ball, but something that has a little bit of give, like a dog chewy toy or something. Not that you'd want to use that because that'd be kind of gross. But you can see how there's so many different tools. And actually, one of the things that I provide all of my clients, whether it's injury prevention group course, which by the way, enrollment is open, or one-on-one recovery, is I provide a kit of different SMR tools that you can use that range on a scale so you can use the appropriate tool for the job. Because if you're laying on a foam roller, it's not feeling uncomfortable unless you're going for like a decompression or a cracking your back, which is totally amazing, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Then you need to adjust the tool accordingly. And I think something that's often forgotten is like we're rolling around on the lacrosse ball or something, but it's not rolling around. We have to maintain that pressure while deep breathing in order to get the full benefits. And of course, like when we want to incorporate movement in SMR, yes, the more we can incorporate movement, the better that technique is going to get, which is why if you go on my Instagram, you look at any tendonitis or carpal tunnel or forearm SMR that I show, you'll see that I start incorporating movement of my wrist as I maintain that pressure. The key is while I maintain that pressure for 60 to 90 seconds, that way you're testing your range of motion and how that tender or tight or beef jerky-like area is affecting your range of motion. And then you can start to work through that. And even if it's only 1 millimeter at a time, there's going to come a point where you hitch through that. And then when you go back to move without the ball, it's going to feel so effortless. You're just going to be like, wow, that 5 minutes of being uncomfortable, and I feel this amazing. I feel warm. I feel tingly. I feel energized. I have full range of motion or more range of motion in that area. And oh my gosh, my pain, which was like really irritating, it's like, it's gone. Weird. Or it's improved. So it's like, again, that SMR is one of those tools that needs to be in every musician's tool belt in terms of pain management. But how you approach it and how you perform it is everything. It's not what you do, it's how you do it that's important, which is why context is so important, which is why a lot of people, they'll try foam rolling and they'll be like, oh yeah, foam rolling is just a load of baloney. Well, it's like, how did you perform that exercise? How did you do that exercise? What was your purpose? What was your goal? How did you incorporate it into your movement map? #body mapping. So it's like, yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I'm totally with you. And I love this theme that's like connecting all of these different conversations that we're having. I'm hearing this theme of openness and not experimenting in a way of like not understanding, not coming from knowledge and doing it, and working with a trained professional like yourself, but like this theme of like, it's situational. Everybody's different. How people are built are different. How like one carpal tunnel from person 1 to person 2, that's going to be different because there's other factors. The tools that you use, that really depends on the situation. And I just really like that because to me, there feels like there's this openness and like awareness of, I don't know if I want to use the word experimentation, but do you know what I mean? Like being curious of like what's working, what's not working. Your situation is different than Joe's or Jane's. Do you see what I'm saying? And I'm hearing this common theme, and I'm like, ooh, that excites me because it doesn't feel so one path. One path doesn't fit all, or one shoe doesn't fit all. Right.
Okay. 100%. And it's like for example, okay, I had an oboist I was working with. She was in a 7-year injury cycle. She tried more things than I knew existed in terms of helping her with her. Yeah, it was insane. And SMR is one of the things that I incorporate early on, or at least try to experiment with it and see what happens. It actually caused a flare up for her. It affected her sleep and it affected her mental health. And I was like, okay, we're not going to do that at all. So we had to explore other methods and other techniques of pain management, as well as improving, the body's alignment, breathing capacity, all of that fun stuff. And we eventually got to the point where she was like, okay, and this was like 2 months later, just because her body was in a constant state of fight or flight, just constant, all the time, anxiety attacks, rushes of adrenaline going through her system at random times, especially at night when she was trying to sleep. And as you can imagine, if you've ever like heard that like loud bang in the middle of the night and you swear it's a gunshot, but it was most likely just, just some animal running into the side of your house or something. And then all of a sudden you're awake for the next 3 hours. Just imagine that every day for like 2 years, like insane. But anyway, so like 2 months later, after we worked on other techniques, she was like, okay, I'm ready to explore SMR. And she's starting to incorporate that into it. But it's like every situation is different. And from when I approach things, I look at someone's ribcage style, wide ISA or narrow ISA. And it's called the infrasternal angle. And someone will have an angle that is representative of the ribcage that they were born with. It's something you can't really change. And that's going to dictate how the diaphragm ascends or descends upon inhalation and ascends on exhalation. And it's going to dictate how their body adapts to movements. So for example, a narrow ISA is going to have a lot of tension on the front side of their body. A wide ISA is going to have a lot of tension on the back side of their body. If you imagine, if I didn't have this information and I was like, wow, your pecs are really tight. Like, let's say I was working with wide ISA, someone whose back was really tense, upper, middle, and lower. And I was like, wow, your front of your body, because you have rounded shoulders, is so tight. Let's open up your chest. Let's do some SMR on your chest. Let's do some oblique exercises and some core relaxation exercises. We could do that for a very long time and you would still be in the same situation because your compensation strategy was more tension in the back. So it's like having that information is so essential. And essential, a little voice crack there, but it's like, that's just one, and granted, that's like not the only way I view human movement, but that is an archetype that can be very helpful when I'm programming exercises and assessing someone's movement capacities. And that's just one of the many tools I have as a coach to assess movement and structure, and compensation strategy. But we all have these different tools. And you're right, it is self-exploratory in a way where the more we can learn about ourselves, the more we can learn about our body, how our body moves, how it adapts, the more power we have to perform maintenance on ourselves and get us back on track to feeling great if we happen to be slipping down a path of overwhelm, of burnout, of tension, tightness, or any other physical symptoms that distract us from either living or performing.
That's amazing. So we have one last inquiry. I'm going to read it, and then I want to give you the floor where you can talk about your amazing program. So this other Flute 360 listener mentions, I have degenerative arthritis in my wrists. It began in the left thumb joint about 2 years ago and has started recently in my right hand. I've been getting cortisone shots. I wear a thumb brace when doing an activity that potentially aggravates it, i.e. playing bass flute, gardening, etc. My husband configured an adjustable stand for the bass flute that takes a lot of the pressure off using a trumpet stand and a rifle stand. Any and all suggestions are appreciated.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. What a husband you have. First thing I was going to say is like the bass flute. We had one of those in my undergrad concert band. Awesome instrument. As a bass trombonist, I'm like, ooh, that's nice. But it's huge, right? And that puts a lot of stress. So whatever you can do to take that stress off and have a more ergonomic setup, I think is going to play in your favor. And I think another question to ask too is, why is your wrists or that area becoming aggravated when you do these activities? And yes, the degenerative arthritis is going to come into play. But if we were to, say best case scenario, let's say you didn't have that and they were still becoming aggravated, let's approach it that way. Why are your wrists becoming aggravated? Is it because when you're gardening, maybe you're putting your wrist in a weird position and your elbow in a weird position to dig or, pull weeds or do some type of activity? Or maybe, you're gardening for hours and hours and hours and simply the load that you're putting on your wrists is just too much in that given time frame that you go into an inflammation cycle and you start experiencing that pain. So, this is something where just kind of being aware of, number one, your posture and your alignment and the ergonomics of your hand as you do these different activities might point you in a direction that could be helpful. Another thing you could do is lighten the load. 100% if you do an hour of gardening and that's too much, do 20 minutes, still too much, do 15. Oh, 15. Okay, I don't have aggravation, take a break, come back again a little bit later. And yeah, that's going to be a little bit, annoying for people who really like to focus and just get things done off of a list. But, this is just like practicing in a sense where imagine you just took a year off and, you go to, get back into playing and you start at 3 hours a day. Like that's a load on your body. You're going to, that's a recipe for injury. You have to strategically plan and load as you go forward with any activity and kind of take a step back and reflect, like, how much am I gardening? What's my alignment like with my arm and my shoulder? Am I completely collapsing everything and in the squatted position for 45 minutes to 60 minutes? Because although I believe, we should be able to squat for, 10 to 15 minutes at one point, any much more than that, your body starts to adapt. And sometimes that's not necessarily helpful with how our posture has adapted to gravity over time. And likewise, like incorporating, if maybe this is something you explored, but incorporating some type of movement exercise on a daily basis where, you take your wrists and throughout its full range of motion, where maybe you even strengthen them very, very lightly to help build endurance and, reinforce some muscle tissue that connects, your wrist to your elbow. Maybe doing some postural alignment and breathing exercises that help with your shoulder, because that, again, in my experience, when people have wrist issues, it's not just the wrist that stuff is going on. There's usually something happening in the shoulder and the rib cage and the scapula, or even the lower back or the spine, or maybe even going a little bit further, because we haven't talked about it, going all the way to how the feet adapt to the ground and how you walk. These all influence our posture and have an impact on that in some respects. So I think, explore those ideas and, and see what happens. I would also, number one, say, like, really be on top of your hydration on those gardening days. 100%. 100%. If we imagine poor circulation, the muscles aren't getting as much oxygen as they would if they were hydrated. Because you have degenerative arthritis, this is not a medical professional health recommendation, because I'm not a medical professional, but you want to give your body the best chance for success. And hydration and a high quality sleep is going to play into your favor in that respect. So just some food for thought there. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time out of helping these 3 Flute 360 listeners. I know they're going to be so appreciative. And now I want to hand off the baton to you to talk about your amazing 8-week program that's coming up in the summer of 2022. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So I'm launching an 8-week summer injury prevention program. The enrollment is open. It closes May 31st, and it runs from June 5th up into the first week of August. And essentially during these 8 weeks, it's for anybody who wants to learn how to prevent injury. It's for anybody that is experiencing occasional tension, tightness, or pain or other physical symptoms and wants to learn how to manage and prevent those symptoms. It's also for people who want to develop a movement routine, a daily movement routine. Again, 10 to 15 minutes is all it takes to change your life. And so every day you're going to be guided by me through a morning routine and an evening routine. And those are going to be progressed throughout the entire weeks to teach you a wide variety of different mobility tools and exercises you can use to keep your body in top shape. And the cool thing about this is that, whether you're someone who's a strength trainer, yoga person, Alexander technique, Feldenkrais, or a body mapper, you're going to benefit from this program because this program uses techniques that is not taught in the musical community. So, I want to encourage anybody out there who, wants to explore how to better take care of themselves, feel better, have more energy, get a deeper sleep, deeper quality of sleep. This is for you. If you're someone that wants to, play with less tension, not more tension, less tension and more freedom on the instrument, this is for you. And if you're someone that has regular flare-ups on occasion or experiences pain or wants to learn a little bit more about why pain happens and what they can do when pain comes up to manage that in a more holistic way, as opposed to icing, heating, or pain meds or endless massage therapy, this is for you, because this is going to be really helpful. And, it is 8 weeks. It may seem like a long time, but developing these skills and learning these skills, my hopes is by the end of these 8 weeks is that you don't need to really rely on me as your guide anymore. Rather, you can take these concepts, apply them, and explore in your own way and adapt them as you continue throughout your career. because these concepts do bleed into every movement modality practice out there because it's human movement. And human movement is all going for the same thing. So again, enrollment closes May 31st. If you want to be a part of this community, if you want some accountability from me, if you want to use me as a guide as you start to implement these habits and develop this movement routine, I just want to empower and invite all of you to shift your perspective on injury prevention and join me over these 8 weeks, because it's going to be truly transformational. And the only thing you have to do is show up. And I promise that this is going to be a life-changing event for you.
Yeah. And that's the first step, is showing up.
Exactly. Showing up.
No, I love that. Thank you so much, Austin. And thank you for letting me pick your brain for 2 beautiful weeks. I have learned a lot.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I've learned a lot. And I'm so appreciative of you and your knowledge and your friendship. And thank you so much for putting this out into the world. So that way, not just flutists, but all musicians can really thrive. And you're helping them get into the driver's seat, like we talked about earlier. And I think there's nothing more empowering, since that word really is resonating with me today. There's nothing more empowering than getting into that driver's seat and taking control of a situation that's not ideal and saying, hey, I'm going to show up for myself. I'm going to get that accountability from experts like Austin to make the changes that are necessary for my life.
Oh, I love that so much, Heidi. And that's really what it is all about, is just showing up for yourself. Just showing up for yourself. And, if you can show up for yourself in any capacity, I think that's a win. And that's going to look different for everybody. But coming together and learning about this stuff and dedicating yourself to this process for yourself is very powerful. It's very powerful. One of the most powerful mindset shifts that you can make. But anyway, so, thank you so much for picking my brain and having these conversations. I mean, this is truly wonderful. And obviously we can keep talking forever, but I'm really grateful for our time together. And if anybody has any questions, you can find me on Instagram at The Functional Musician, www.thefunctionalmusician.com. Shoot me a message, say hi. I'm here to help. I'm here to be a resource. I'm happy to be a resource in any way that I can.
Awesome. I will put all those links in the show notes below. Go there, message out. When he says reach out, he means it. Start up a conversation. And I hope that this content has been helpful to you. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. And we hope that the information has served you well. Friendly reminder, you want to go to thefunctionalmusician.com to register to Austin Pantsner's 8-week injury prevention course. Now, there's no reason for you to do this alone. If you are in pain, or if you want more information on how to prevent pain from creeping into your career, then you need to go and register and grab your seat today. Enrollment is open until June 1st, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my goodness, this is mid-May. I've got plenty of time. I've been there, but you are a busy bee. And you may forget, and we don't want that to happen. So head on over to Austin's website at thefunctionalmusician.com and register today. Your future self will thank you.
Let's talk about Flute.